رمضان 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 يا حبيب رمضان.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last episode I talked to you about the change that I hope that each and every one of us will make during this month, which is changing the relationship with the Quran. And I mean specifically the way we read the Quran. I would love to see ourselves more focusing more on the meanings of the verses, connecting the Quran directly to our life, making that link, reflecting upon the verses and seeing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing our own issues, make it so personal. This is what we call tadabbur al-Quran, reflecting upon the verses of the Quran. When you read the stories of Ibn Abbas and Ibn Mas'ud and the Mujahid and the scholars, how they used to spend almost the whole night reading just one verse and reflecting upon it, this verse. Or one of them will hear a verse and he's breaking tears. Why? Because he make that connection. He basically sees how this verse directly linked to his life, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala personally addressing him. Ibn Abi Mulaika said, I spent the night with Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh while we're traveling, and he said, we're traveling from Mecca to Medina, and he spent half of the night reading Quran. And he will read so slowly, and I can hear him crying, and tears mixed with words. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad كانت قراءته حزينة. Sounds like so, he's so moved, when you hear it, will be moved by his recitation. Kind of sad voice. Shahiyya, so tempting and so nice. Bati'ah, slow. Mustarsila, he recited and he take his time. كأنه يخاطب إنسانا أو يخاطبه إنسان, as if he's talking to someone or someone talking to him. And if a verse talking about paradise or hellfire, he will repeat the verse and pause, thinking about what this verse really means to him. A lot of people mix between tafsir al-Quran, interpreting the Quran, and contemplating on the verses of the Quran. Interpreting the Quran must be done by a scholar. By reflecting upon the verses of the Quran, it's not for scholars. Reflecting upon the verses of the Quran is the duty of every single Muslim. But interpreting the Quran is the responsibility of the scholars, the people of knowledge. In order for you to interpret the Quran, you need to have many other science in Sharia, like mastering the Arabic language, knowing al-balagha, ulum al-balagha, knowing the science of al-nasikh wal-mansukh, the verses that abrogate others. And you know the ahadith in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know the tafsir al-salaf, the early generation, the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, how they interpreted the Quran. You know the fiqh rulings. That's the one who interpreted the Quran. That's why ilm al-tafsir is the science that combine many other science. It's not something the student will just start with. But when it comes to contemplating the Quran, reflecting upon the verses, making that connection between you and the Quran is not the responsibility or not only the duty of the ulama. Yes, al-ulama, with the knowledge that they have, the scholars with all the knowledge that they have, they can go deep into so many meanings. An average Muslim will not see it or will not basically pay attention to it. But I think every single Muslim can contemplate in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He asked all of us to contemplate in the Quran, He addressed all of us. He didn't address the ulama only. He asked all of us to have tadabbur al-Quran, reflecting on the deeper meanings and indication, reflecting over the meanings and how to relate to us. It's the duty, as said, for every Muslim. While tafsir is a science, tadabbur is an ability. It needs to develop certain skills. How can you make tadabbur al-Quran? And I know the question that in everybody's mind right now while I'm talking, Sheikh, you can say that because you're an Arab, you know how to understand Arabic, you read the Quran in Arabic, but I don't. I read the English translation, I read the French translation, whatever language that you read. You know, my Arabic is very limited, I barely can read. I maybe memorize surahs, but I don't know what it means. Can I still have tadabbur al-Quran? Can I still contemplate things in the verse of the Quran? My answer is absolutely yes. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order us to contemplate in the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Al-Quran, we made the Quran easy, so there is anyone contemplating on the Quran. You don't think that Allah knows that the vast majority of the Muslim Ummah don't speak Arabic? The overwhelming number of the Muslim Ummah don't understand Arabic. And even those who speak Arabic, they don't understand the language of the Quran very well. You're not very familiar with the traditional Arabic. But still Allah asks all of us to contemplate in the Quran. I always say this to my students and to my community, my friends, even my children, who some of them don't maybe master Arabic language. I tell them, still it's your duty to contemplate on the verses, to reflect upon the Quran. And there are certain tools, if you learn them, it will help you to achieve that goal. And I will start with the first rule, the first principle, that it will help non-Arabic speaker to contemplate in the Quran, even if you don't know a single word in Arabic. So stay tuned to start, inshallah, after the break. We'll start with the first principle.
Ramadan, 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 ya Habib, Ramadan, 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 ya Habib, Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to your program. Ramadan is the month of change. And we're focusing on these episodes about changing our relationship with the Quran and how can we contemplate on the verses that we read. And the challenge that I put up for myself, how can a non-Arabic speaker contemplate on the Quran? How can someone don't understand Arabic while have tadabbur al-Quran? Is that possible by just reading the translation? And my answer is yes, it is absolutely possible. And I will share with you many principles, hopefully in the upcoming few episodes, will help you. So by the end of Ramadan, you immediately, or during Ramadan, inshallah, you start practicing it. By the end of Ramadan, hopefully your relationship with the Quran will change. You would never read the Quran again the same way if you start implementing these principles. And as I said, many or most of the Muslim world don't speak Arabic, and still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks all of us to have tadabbur al-Quran, to contemplate on the verses of the Quran. And before I start the first principle, I would just want to make this crystal clear to all of us. My talk, not in any way, in any shape, in any form, suggests that we should not take care of our Arabic or abandon Arabic language, or we don't need it anymore because, I can contemplate in the Quran through translation, or this will be replacement to that. No, that's not my goal. But also it's not acceptable, it's not reasonable to tell the non-Arabic speakers, you know what, you can't do anything until you learn Arabic. Because learning Arabic will take years and years of dedication, of learning. And even when you learn basic Arabic, it's not going to make you able to go and contemplate deeper in the verse of the Quran. I know some of the English speakers who make reflection upon the verse of the Quran always fascinate people. And they get so excited by all the beauty of the Arabic language in the Quran, especially when translated to English, and how fascinating this is. But in the end of the day, when people go back home, they know that I can't do what this Sheikh say or that Imam say. I can't be Nu'man Ali Khan, I can't be this or that. So what, they became depressed. And I want to tell you during these episodes, don't be depressed. You can have a little bit of tadabbur. You can improve your tadabbur al-Quran through certain principles. But in the same time, don't ever think that these principles are replacement for putting an effort to understand the Arabic language, to study the language of the Quran, to improve your recitation and reading the Quran in Arabic. Let me make this clear from the beginning. So principle number one, that every time you read the Quran, you always basically reframe your way of thinking about the Quran. That this book, this verses, is not just you reading a historical event, something happened in the past, or the Quran was sent to Muhammad ﷺ and kind of I'm out of that picture. No. Every time you read the Quran, I want you to imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing you and you personally. That's, I think, one of the most important principles that it will help us to contemplate in the Quran. As Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, if you really want to benefit from the Quran and you want to maximize your benefit from it, فَاجْمَعْ قَلْبَكَ. You bring your thoughts together when you hear the recitation of the Quran, listen carefully and listen to it as if Allah is speaking to you directly. That's what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Qaf, Allah described that exactly in Surah Qaf. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ. The person who will listen carefully as if he is witnessing the revelation. As if you basically witnessing this conversation taking place between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Ghazali rahimahullah, when he was talking about how can you maximize your benefit from the Quran, asbabul intifa'i bil Quran, he said that anytime you hear Allah speaking in the Quran, giving an order or ordering you to abstain from something or leave something, you feel as if Allah is speaking to you directly. That's why Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu arda, he said when you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ar'i laha sam'ak. You listen attentively. You focus because Allah addressing you, talking to you. One of the young brothers told me once, just like all of us, just an average Muslim. He said, I still remember the last day of my exams. And I'm going to have my summer vacation after that. The last day, my last exam. And he said, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to finish my exam. And after my exam, my vacation, you know what? I'm going to start this. I'm going to go to this sports club. I'm going to travel for this country. I'm going to start doing this, basically learning this new sports. And he said, I was thinking about all the things that I'm going to do in the vacation. You know what? I'm not going to wake up before 10 a.m. every day. I'm going to just sleep. I'm going to go to watch this and to do that. He said, I was thinking about all these tons of things I want to do in that summer during the vacation. And he said, while in my focus on this, I was praying Maghrib, because tomorrow is my last exam. Or maybe this happened in the Maghrib that right after he finished his exam. Not sure right now, I can't remember. He said the Imam in Salat al-Maghrib was reading, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Inshirah, he said, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانصَبْ وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. When you finish, that's the time where you dedicate yourself to the worship of Allah. He said, I felt as if Allah speaking to me. And when you finish your exams and being busy with study, that's the time to tansab. This is the time to direct your ibadah, to focus in your worship, and to increase your ibadah. He said, brought tears to my eyes. And I thought, I'm planning all these things during summer, and I was not thinking about وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ, and seek what your Lord has. And that completely changed my perspective about how I'm going to spend my summer. But look, this is what I call tadabbur al-Quran. It's not about mastering Arabic language. It's not about seeing the beauty of the language and putting the jar majroor before the noun. No, it's about how you make the Quran. You build that personal connection with the Quran. There is more to talk about, but inshallah in the next episode we'll be discussing more about how can you contemplate in the Quran even if you don't know Arabic language. See you inshallah soon. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ramadan, Ramadan, Ramadan.